Welcome to the Bill Barnwell Show. I am Bill Barnwell. Today, we are going to find, on this very podcast, the second best team in the AFC. Or maybe the best team in the AFC, assuming the Buffalo Bills, to me, are the best team in the AFC. Maybe our guest will think otherwise. But first, if you are listening to this show on your favorite podcast medium, your phone, your computer, I have exciting news for you. Yes, we are one of the many podcasts who have made the move to YouTube. You can now watch this show each and every week, twice a week during the NFL season, here on YouTube with my guest, one of my favorites, a very wise and talented man, formerly of SB Nation, now an NFL analyst at CBS, and a celebrity fan, is it fair to say?
I don't know about celebrity.
I would say celebrity fan, highly respected, highly regarded fan of one of the teams we're going to discuss today in our conversation about who might be the best team in the AFC besides the Buffalo Bills. Joining me is my friend, JP Acosta. JP, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's been such a fun first quarter of the season with a lot of cool stuff happening that even outside of my favorite team that we will get to, there's been so much cool stuff going on.
Before the show, I said, should we get to that team later on? Should we start with them?
Let's go ahead.
I asked the question. I should not have, because I was going to go to it either way. I apologize. We got to start with the Jacksonville Jaguars. 3-1. Threatening or having their coaches' lives threatened on the field after victories, committing illegal shift penalties and illegal procedure penalties like they get paid to do so. They're good? Are they great? I have absolutely no idea. And this is why I'm coming to you as the Jags expert, having seen the best of Jags football and the worst of Jags football over the years. JP, how do you feel about your 3-1 Jacksonville Jaguars?
I think I feel really great about this team. Mm-hmm. The fact that they are 3-1 despite committing the most penalties in the NFL this year so far. Not only have they committed 7 illegal shift penalties, they've also committed the most holding penalties in the NFL. And they are still 3-1, still tied for first place in the division. And you can still say that there is meat left on the bone offensively. There is a lot of stuff they have yet to do. They aren't really explosive, although the plays are there. It's just penalties, it's the holdings, it's the illegal shifts. The run game has been awesome. I think you're seeing Trevor Lawrence be a bit more comfortable within this offense. I think some of the short and intermediate game is really good. And you're starting to find out that this offense is adaptable. They are changing different things. They're doing different stuff. Brian Thomas Jr. on Sunday, actually the week before, I wrote how Brian Thomas Jr. was running so many in-breakers over the middle of the field. That's why he was struggling. On Sunday, nothing but out routes, nothing but comebacks, and he was really good. So I enjoy that this offense has been able to adapt and find ways to win, while the defense has suddenly become like phenomenal over the course of one off season.
Yeah, I mean, let's start on the defensive side of the football, because that to me has been the most exciting part of this team so far. We'll certainly touch on the offense as well, but before the year, pick the Jags as one of my teams most likely to improve. They're not all going well. So this is not a, let's brag about how right I am, because we could talk about the Giants and how terrible they are in the red zone. Different conversation for a different day. But one of the reasons why we expected the Jags to improve is that they had so few takeaways last year. They had one multi-turnover game, tied for the fewest of any team in NFL history, and they have 13 in 4 games to start the year. I was not expecting that. When I said regression towards the mean, I did not expect them to become the 85 Bears when it came to turnovers. And some of that is fluky. Like, you're not going to count on 3 turnovers a game, but there's something real happening here. The upgrades in the secondary have really stuck to me. I think Jordan Lewis, a guy whose contract I hated. I hated that contract. He has been awesome in the slot, knocking away passes, making plays, just all over the place. He's really been such a great addition for them and really played well. Josh Hines-Allen has been awesome to me. I think he's a defensive player of the year caliber start to the season for him. Really week 1, I mean, poor Josh Nijman got the heck beat out of him by Josh Hines-Allen. I know Travon Walker's injured. He's dealing with the wrist injury. It looks like it's going to be a multi-week injury, unfortunately, or keep him out for a little bit here. But, I guess what I'd ask you is, outside of the takeaways, Is there something on the defense that's really surprised you relative to your expectations heading into the season?
I think it's the play over the middle of the field, which has really, really stood out to me. That was where the Jaguars were always weakest. They were dead last in the NFL last year in DVOA over the middle of the field. They were dead last in defending running backs and tight ends, and that largely was because you were asking your linebackers to play a lot of man coverage. They don't play as much man as they do this year, but Devin Lloyd has truly taken a step into a top 10 linebacker category, even without the turnovers. You can look at the peanut punches, you can look at the tip interceptions, be like, okay, that's a little fluky. And I'd be like, sure, that's fine. But he has been a monster for them, especially in some of the sort of design blitz stuff that they'll do. Anthony Campanelli does come from Green Bay, and they do a lot of similar stuff pressure package-wise as the Packers. They will line up Devin Lloyd over a guard, and they'll use him to pick stunt on plays to get Trayvon Walker free. That was on one of the sacks they had against Houston. And again, poor Houston Texans left tackle Ariante Ursary got the heck kicked out of him by the Jaguars defensive front. But it's the middle of the field stuff that's really been improved for me, including the addition of Eric Murray. You could tell that they didn't have Eric Murray on Sunday because of how much more access the middle of the field stuff was. But that spine of the defense has gotten so much better in the passing game that it's really helped sort of tie this defense together. And I think that's where you see the most improvement. Even Foye Oluokun has kind of turned back the clock a little bit, shown a little bit more range.
Yeah, Devin Lloyd, someone I really was disappointed with last year. I mean, I'd watch them and I'd just be like, man, this guy, either he doesn't care or he's hurt or he is suddenly like running a 5.4 40, but he looks like he does not belong in the field. And this year, much better. Again, like you said, even if the turnovers, that stuff doesn't stick, just, having a guy you trust over the middle of the field, a guy you trust who can be part of those blitz packages, a guy you trust in zone coverage, a guy who's going to pass stuff off correctly. That stuff just goes such a long way. Just having, I think what I really found so frustrating about the Jags last year is that you just couldn't really trust guys in spots. Like you would have blitz pickups with their running backs where if they want to get to the right place, or they get to the right place and then we get run over, or, it was just so sloppy on both sides of the football. And it just feels so much tighter. It just feels so much more consistent. Like, again, there have been issues on offense. We'll get to them. But especially on the defensive side of the ball, it just feels like they're getting the max out of the talent they have. Whereas last year, it felt like they were getting so little out of the players they actually did have on the roster.
Yeah, and I think one of the bigger differences is last year, this team was so slow. And I think a large part of that, I think Josh Hines-Allen said he was playing at 285, 290, because in Ryan Nielsen's defense, they wanted their edges to be bigger. But now he's playing a lot faster. Dennis Gardeck was a July signing, like off the street, who has been one of their best players so far on the second level. And he allows them to do what I've noticed a lot in the NFL this year is you can get into 5-man fronts and 6-man fronts while keeping your coverage bodies on the field because you have linebackers like Gardeck, like Devin Lloyd, who can play on the edge, and you can get a little more usage out of them in run situations, but still drop them in the pass. He had a forced fumble on Sunday where he peanut punched, I think it was Tonjes for the Niners. So just like you said, getting the most out of every player, and we still truly haven't seen Travis Hunter full-time DB yet. He's been good at defensive back, but once he truly becomes a full-time corner or full-time receiver, I think this team is going to take off even more.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of the part you alluded to earlier about there being meat on the bone still. If I sat here before the year and you told me, okay, the Jags are 3-1, they're off to a hot start, I'd be like, okay, well, Travis Hunter's probably playing great. Like, we're making big plays on both sides of the ball. Brian Thomas is probably balling out. Like, they have a really good passing game. They're probably creating a couple more turnovers than they did last year, but they're doing this with Travis Hunter being mostly anonymous. He's been a little bit in the secondary. I've seen, guys kind of catching stuff in front of him. He hasn't been, really in a position to play a ton of man coverage. Hasn't done a ton on offense. I like them using him on choice routes earlier this year. I kind of feel like that's a good spot to start with him. But he's been, a secondary, tertiary part of the offense. He could still get going. Brian Thomas, obviously, like you said, first few weeks of the year seemed to lose his confidence. There was the whole hullabaloo about whether he was decided he was tough enough to play football, which I'm not sure I agree with. But like you said, I feel like last week was kind of the moment he started getting back into the swing of things in the offense. Those guys can still get better. Those guys are really good football players. There's still a lot of opportunity there. The procedural stuff, we assume, I hope, I have to imagine it's going to get better, and they're not going to have as many pre-snap penalties and not be in 2nd and long and 3rd and long as often. And then I think the thing you are hoping for with Liam Cohen that you saw in Tampa Bay, really during his season there, even relative to what Dave Canales was doing the year before, was how good, how variable, how interesting, how compelling the run game was. And you're really seeing that because this team could not run the ball over the last couple of years. And I was concerned that Liam Cohen had like a top 5 offensive line in Tampa Bay and he wasn't bringing that to Jacksonville. And that was my hesitation of, okay, like, yeah, you can draw up the plays, but can the guys actually run them? And so far, looks, it's not the most consistent offense, but they're hitting explosives, which they were not doing last year in the run game very often. And they are more consistent than they were last year. And I feel like that's the sort of the thing underpinning all of this is like the fact that you have a reliable run game is just going to make Trevor Lawrence's life so much easier, especially when these star wide receivers are a more featured and more reliable part of the offense.
And the coolest thing about this offense is you have gotten contributions from every single player, every single new addition to this roster. Travis Hunter, I've always said, like, before season, they told us he was going to be a situational guy. Like, against the Bengals, he played more defensive back because they needed him to. He played more offense on Sunday because they needed him to. So it's going to be a very week in, week out variable scenario for him until he learns both playbooks, which is perfectly fine. But outside of that, you're getting great contributions from Patrick McCarry and Robert Hainsey. Robert Hainsey has been a weapon on all those perimeter screens, those plays where you want him to get out and move. He's going out and taking guys out. I actually think you've gotten really cool stuff from every single running back on the roster, which I think is a great staple of Liam Cohen's offense, where you get Travis Etienne, who is having a resurgent year. They run a lot of zone stuff with him. His vision and acceleration looks fully back. Baishal Tutin is such a boost of energy and juice to this offense, where you can use them in the run and passing game. They'll have both of them on the field. They ran it a few times in against San Francisco, where they'll have both of them on the field. You'll throw swing screens to ETN. You'll get Tutin involved. And then LaQuint Allen might be one of my favorite Jaguars players on the roster because that is a real football player. He's going to throw his nose in there. He has gotten some crazy good pass protection reps. He's out there in the passing game. He is just such a reliable player. And then outside of those guys, you're getting contributions from De'Ami Brown. You're getting contributions from the acquisitions on defense. This is something that the Jaguars never really got from their free agent or draft signings in previous years. Like, you're thinking you got to go back to like the instant addition of Christian Kirk. But this offense getting all the contributions that they are in the run game, where they're running a lot more split zone, which was what I was really curious about, because Liam Cohen ran a lot of counter, duo, a lot of that stuff in Tampa when the run game really started to take off. But it seems like he has adapted to what this offense is good at, what this offensive line is good at. And that's split zone, a lot more zone stuff, and then misdirection. And through that, you've sort of created a really, really cool offense on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who was with Sean McVay for a while, and Sean McVay varied his offense depending on what his running backs can do, what the play action stuff is off of that. Having Puka Nacua as like your lead wide receiver changes what you can do in terms of your blocking scheme and your play action stuff. And, there's not a lot of coaches who can do that. Like, a lot of coaches are, for better or worse, married to what they grew up learning, and that's what they can do. And so I think it's been really cool to see Liam Cohen sort of adapt and shift and say, okay, I have a smaller, more athletic offensive line. I don't have that superstar left tackle. Let me be a little more creative. Let me do a little more zone stuff, a little more misdirection, like you said. I think that's been really cool. And I think even outside of Thomas, like Brenton Strange has been great in a larger role. I think they're getting more out of their, bigger multi-tight end personnel groupings. Parker Washington has had a couple moments here and there. It does feel like the holdovers, Thomas aside on offense, have played better with Liam Cohen in the fold. How do you feel about Trevor Lawrence after a few games here? A really low sack rate, but 4 interceptions, some of which have been pretty bad. I mean, but some good throws as well. Like, I feel like there is a on the national side, sort of like just let's just Trevor Lawrence, like who can, that is what he is at this point. What sort of growth have you seen watching him maybe a little closer than people who aren't watching the Jags as closely every week?
I think when you watch Trevor Lawrence, you see a player that's a lot more confident in his mechanics and footwork. And I think that has gone such a long way this season. I think they talked about it really early in their game against the Panthers in week 1, how Trevor Lawrence has always wanted to change his footwork, but previous coaching regimes wouldn't let him. But now it feels like the footwork is changing, his stance has changed up a little more, and he's just much more efficient in the short to intermediate game. And I think that's where the biggest change has started to come from. I think past couple of seasons, he's been really good throwing the deep ball, but not as efficient in the intermediate game. And now that's kind of flipped. I honestly think, despite what the stats will tell you, Trevor has played fine. I'd say he's played good. They lead the NFL in drops, which is just a thing. Like, that's always a thing with the Jaguars. But
yes,
the biggest thing that I want to see from this offense is, can you be explosive? Can you generate big plays through the air? Because I feel like that's the one thing that this offense is lacking. They're lacking that big play ability right now. And large part of that is due to, you're always going to find yourself in 2nd and 20 or in 2nd and 15 because of penalties. But there are plays there. Sometimes there are just misses by Trevor throwing downfield, sometimes miscommunication. But as soon as they can figure out that explosive, that big playability in the passing game, this offense is really going to start to take off.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if you're a team that just doesn't have the dudes, but like we saw Brian Thomas just glide past cornerbacks last year so smoothly. Like, he has that big playability. And I know he had a big play against the Texans, but that was a blown coverage where CJ Gardner-Johnson got fired because of it, basically. Travis Hunter, we saw what he could do at Colorado. Like he can run past players. He is an athletic player. We've seen Travis Etienne do it this year on big plays. We know he has that ability in him. They have the dudes. Like, they have the ability to pull this off, and I do believe they can do that. I think one of the tough parts has been, like you said, being in 2nd and long, 3rd and long, hard to get your play action game going. Trevor's completion percentage over expected on play action is like minus 15% this year. So like, they're going to hit some of those throws. I don't think Trevor's true ability is like a minus 15% CPOE in play action. And those are going to be chunk plays when the Jaguars do hit them. So I'm optimistic. I really think this offense is in good shape. I really think seeing the run game going so quickly is like such a positive sign for them. And I will say, JP, we're going to find out pretty soon what this team can do. This is a 3-game homestand coming up. Kansas City Chiefs, Seattle Seahawks, Los Angeles Rams. That is the defending AFC champions and two of, to me, the best teams in the NFC, two of the best defenses, two of the best defensive fronts in the NFC. I should ask you, like, what does your heart tell you and what does your head tell you about this homestand in terms of what you're going to get in terms of results?
I think if they can leave the bye week at 4-3, if they can get to 4-3, or if they can get to like 5, if you can get to 5-2 or like 6-1, that you're cruising, you're doing great. But if you can get to 4-3, I'd be fine. I think the Seahawks are going to present a really big problem for them because they can stop the run out of light boxes. And I want to see how they can adjust to a team like that. The Rams game is in London, so that's always going to be it's always going to be a weird game over in London. It's always going to be a game where nothing is expected in London. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be playing a quarterback in Matthew Stafford who's playing at an incredibly, incredibly high level. So if they can get to 4-3, if they can stay above 500 going into the bye, post-bye, you get a really, really nice slate of games. Really, you can cruise back into it before that final stretch. But if they can get to the bye at above 500, I feel real confident in this team.
Yeah, and really, like I said, 3 games at home. Technically, one of them is in London, but that is Jags fans. I mean, I feel like at this point, they travel, and I do think that there's a somewhat of a built-in fan base in London for the Jags at this point, having played in London for so long. I'll admit, JP, I'm not going to lie to you. when they were playing the Texans and they were like struggling to put that game away, and Trevor threw the interception, and then Tyson Campbell blew a coverage, and Nico Collins ran downfield for an easy touchdown, I am like, oh no, the Jags are losing this game. I feel it in my bones. And then they won. They won the game. That was the moment where I was like, oh, maybe these are the new Jaguars. Maybe I should believe in the Jags. That to me felt like the moment where I started to believe. Do you truly, in your heart, believe in these Jacksonville Jaguars?
So, for those who don't know, this entire offseason, I've been saying I've been emotionally hedging against this Jaguars team being good because I thought last year they'd be pretty good and they were terrible. I think this team is good. I believe in this team, and I believe in what this coaching staff has brought to this team. Like you said, that Texans game, after the interception and after the Tyson Campbell blown coverage, I was like, oh, they're going to lose this game. After, I believe it was a quick 3-and-out against the 49ers, and they went down to score. I was like, oh, this is a game that the other previous Jaguars teams would lose. The Jaguars, I think, had a terrible record traveling. They had never had a good game going to the West Coast, especially out to California. But they won that game, and they won it on the backs of their defense, which is something we haven't seen in Jacksonville since 2017, So I feel really confident in this team, knowing that the defense is sustainable. I know you're going to look at the turnovers and be like, turnovers are a little fluky, but even outside of that, they have been a very solid down-to-down defense, and the offense still hasn't hit their final gear. So with that belief that they're going to hit the final gear, with that belief that this offense is going to improve, because Liam Cohen's offenses have always improved week over week, I'm a believer in this team. I think this team can really be a problem in the AFC.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really good point. I think there's like that, like you said, even if the turnovers don't stick, the quality of the defense from down to down, and I think the run game underpinning everything gives you a floor that Jaguars teams have not necessarily had every week in the past. Okay. I have a couple other teams here. I will let you lead the way, though. Is there a team you want to nominate as the second best team in the AFC, and if it is not the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Oh, man. The second best team in the AFC. I'm going to hesitantly now say the Broncos.
Ooh, that wasn't even on my list.
I'm hesitantly saying the Broncos because I think that the most difficult games that they have been against a Chargers team with one of the best defenses in the league. And then they played a Colts team that was just on a heater at the moment. And honestly, they're one flag away from probably winning that game. But we have seen what this Broncos defense and Broncos team can be when the defense is firing on all cylinders and when Sean Payton's really drawing it up. That is what got them to the playoffs last year. But what I think is different about this team, I think they have a little bit more explosiveness from the run game this year. Last year, it felt like it was such a slog for them trying to get anything from their backs under center. Now you have J.K. Dobbins, who's running really well. R.J. Harvey's really starting to put it together. I'm still curious in them finding others in the passing game. But if Sean Payton's going to lean into the 12 and 21 personnel and just hammer teams with the run game and then do boot action with Bo Nix, I think that's a sustainable way for them to win. My biggest hesitation with this Broncos team is Bo Nix. It is if Bo Nix can just avoid the boneheaded stuff.
Just chill out.
Yes, please just chill out. Just relax. Relax the feet, especially his footwork and his mechanics throwing the ball downfield. It looks like he's doing the Tebow jump pass every pass downfield, and I'm just like, why? Like, why would you do this? But if they can just be a little bit more explosive in the passing game, I think this defense and this running game gives you a floor. Like we said with the Jaguars, it gives you a floor. And with the Chargers not having Joe Alt for an extended period of time with the ankle injury, with the Chiefs still trying to figure themselves out, and then the Ravens sitting real rough with all the injuries right now, you're looking for somebody. I think the Broncos got a good shot.
Yeah, They weren't on my list. I could see your argument, though. The points you brought up were completely valid about the defense and the run game. And discussing the run game is tough for them because last year, I think people, not you, but I think people would see the run game and be like, oh, this run game stinks, but they weren't thinking about the RPOs, and that's part of their run game. And Bo Nix was really good on RPOs, and they were hitting for steady gains on RPOs. And so that helped the run game. But when they needed to be just, oh, we're going to just do design runs, we're going to run our gap stuff, it wasn't working. And it was frustrating because that offensive line was really good. And so it was like, this should work, but it's not. And I think it's been really promising this year, to your point, that they have been able to hit explosives against Tennessee. Late in the game they did. Against Cincinnati last week, they really did whatever they wanted on offense, frankly. And it wasn't like they hit a 40-yarder and did nothing else. They were hitting 8, 9, 10-yard, 13-yard gains over and over and over again. And that really speaks to how consistently good they were at creating holes and making guys miss and all that stuff you want from your run game. And then I think the part that I find promising and worrying at the same time for Denver is they're opening up explosives in the pass game. There have been opportunities to make plays. There was against the Chargers a couple of big plays. I think there were five downfield throws in that game that were open for potential either huge chunk plays or touchdowns. And Bo Nix hit 2 of them. And if he hits 3, they probably win that game. It was probably the difference in that game. The fact that they're creating those, it's great. I'm happy to see that. It speaks to how good Sean Payton is, how reliable they are at reading stuff, how there are opportunities to hit that, but they're not hitting them. And I guess that's the part I wonder is, is Bo Nix, who, like you said, has very inconsistent footwork, just doesn't look like other quarterbacks. I think the thing I would just say is when I watch other quarterbacks, there's uniqueness to how guys do drops, how they read defenses. Everyone's going to be different. Bo Nix just looks more scattershot and more random than anybody else when he's just a drop back passer. I don't know where he's going to go in the pocket. I don't know if his offensive linemen know where he's going to go in the pocket. He's late to stuff in terms of things coming open. And when he's in control, there were 2 really nice throws against the Bengals. There was I think I talked about it on the Monday show, a shot up the sideline. Mm-hmm. I think to Troy Franklin, and then a scene to Cortland Sutton, he got to the back of his drop. Footwork was consistent. Ball came out, ton of force, ton of torque, really good arm strength on those throws in the perfect spot. And you're just man, why can't you just do that all the time? You would be really good if you could just do that, for 90% of your plays. And 10% was just the stuff we saw against Tennessee in week 1, where he's doing a layup drill and throwing stuff off 1 foot as he falls backwards. Just you're not that dude. Josh Allen can get away with that. Patrick Mahomes can get away with that. Maybe one day you can get away with that, Bo Nix, but you're not at that point yet. And the part I just struggle with is, when you listen to Broncos fans last year, it was okay, well, Bo, he got off to a rough start, but he got improved as the year went along. And by the end of the year, he was kind of knew what he could do and not do, and he was stable, which, okay, fine. If that's the truth, that's the truth. Then he had an entire offseason. They upgraded the personnel around him. He still has the very good offensive line. It doesn't feel like he's any improved than he was last year. It feels like he's almost worse in some ways than he was year. Almost like he believed the offseason hype and got back into, it's oh no, that's the stuff I need to do more if it's just my Bo Nix stuff. And that's the part I find difficult, is he going to be able to be that consistent drop back passer more often? I haven't seen that so far this year. If he can, that's what's the only thing missing from this team to me. I do think they could be one of the best teams in football if they had the Bo Nix who looked really confident and consistent against the Bengals. I just don't know, as they play, for example, the Eagles in Philadelphia this week, are we going to get that Bo Nix, or are we going to get the Bo Nix who looks frantic and scattershot for chunks of games?
Yeah, and the Bo Nix, every throw is an off-platform throw when it doesn't have to be. When he's doing the off-platform stuff, when it's in the scramble drill, he actually is pretty solid in that scenario. But I think with Bo, when all of his cleats are in the ground, all spikes are in the ground, hits the back foot, comes out, he's got enough arm strength. But he is sapping himself by turning every pass into an off-platform throw from the pocket. And that's why those deep passes are not hitting. So if you're Sean Payton, if you are the Broncos, What do you have to do to just get this guy to just relax? I think Baker Mayfield did the same thing, where his footwork was always out of whack. And then he got to Tampa, and that sort of quieted him down a little bit. Maybe this is a team that just relies on him moving the pocket, doing a lot of bootleg stuff, because that plays into some of the off-platform throws that he can make. So I wonder if that's where they go with it, especially if they can keep this run game as explosive and efficient as they've been.
Right. It is. You can run that boot stuff on 2nd and 4 or 1st and 10. It's a lot harder when it's 2nd and 14 and 3rd and 18 and you're playing a really good defense and they're going to heat you up. Like, that is I think, a really good point. And if they can stay out of those negative game scripts or negative, I guess, sort of series scripts, they're going to be fine. Because like you said, I think, if you're going to, I said this as someone with a small child now, where I'm just like, if he's going to crawl, like, just let him crawl. It's okay, fine. Like not going to like stop him from crawling. Just like create a space where you can crawl. Like if Bo Nix wants to run around, okay, cool. Let him run around. Like just build that into the offense if he's going to do it anyway. So I do think like they're in a really good defensive spot. Defense is so inconsistent from year to year that you're always, I think, a little concerned that they might have fielded like the 12th best defense in football and not been able to win games with their defense. But this defense looks awesome so far this year. I don't want to spoil my column for tomorrow, but Nick Bonito figures very highly in the Defensive Player of the Year rankings. And that is a defense where, I swear, like, if you told me tomorrow the Broncos discovered something about jumping snaps, like, I swear, like, there's like 2 or 3 snaps a game where I'm just like, were you in the huddle? Like, did you know when they were going to snap the ball? Like they just completely blow up a couple plays a game just by jumping the snap. And Jonathan Cooper's really good at it. Nick Bonito's great at it. The interior's been really good. John Franklin Myers has been really good. Like, they're not even getting the Pat Surtain from last year, who was like, teams have thrown at him and been okay. Like, they have been just really, really impressive on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I think the Bonito and Jonathan Cooper are allowed to play the way they do because of how good their interior defensive line is. They can rotate guys in. You can rotate John Franklin Myers in. You can rotate in DeAndre Tillman on the defensive line because you have DJ Jones and Zach Allen, who just cause problems. Like, it's not that they are just constantly like getting sacks or impact with tackles for loss. They are just causing problems up front. You have to account for DJ Jones and Zach Allen on the interior of the defensive line. And that creates one-on-ones, and that creates really big problems when you have 2 guys who can win with speed like Bonito and Cooper. So you're just forcing everybody to step up into the pocket, and they have speed everywhere. The craziest thing is they haven't even gotten Dre Greenlaw back.
Yeah.
And once Dre Greenlaw gets back, you have speed at the second level now too. Mm-hmm. So now you just tie everything together.
Yeah, and that's how teams have picked on them. Colts threw a lot to their running backs and got their linebackers picked in space. Like, Dre Greenlaw, if he's healthy, is going to make a big difference there. So that's a really good point. They will go as far as Bo Nix goes. Like, if Bo Nix is the 16th best quarterback in football, they're going to win 9 or 10 games and probably be a wild card team. If he is the 12th best quarterback in football, they have a shot. If he's the 20th best quarterback in football, they're probably winning 8 games and missing the postseason. So it is really, to me, I believe in everything. Not sure I believe in Bo quite yet, but we will see. A quarterback everyone believes in, seemingly, is Justin Herbert, whose Los Angeles Chargers are 3-1 and have a tiebreaker over the Broncos and the Chiefs as they lead the AFC West. They also just lost to the New York Giants, which is not going to help your case and your resume when you're talking about being one of the best teams in football. In that game, as you mentioned earlier, they lost Joe Alt, who's going to probably miss some time here with a high ankle sprain. Already down Rashawn Slater, their star left tackle, who's out for the year. The offensive line was not able to hold up for Justin Herbert against the New York Giants, who beat him up. Justin Herbert has a habit of maybe taking a few too many hits by his nature, and they have leaned so heavily into throwing the football that he's been dropping back a ton. He looked a little worse for the wear by the end of the game. I guess you have to be excited about the 3-1 start and beating the Chiefs and beating the Broncos. Like, yes, you slipped in the banana peel against the Giants in a game where, was their Jackson Dart's first career start. The crowd was hyped. Like, not ideal. But where do you stand on the Chargers? Because this was a team where a couple weeks ago, it was like, okay, they're now part of the mix at the top of the AFC with the Ravens and the Chiefs and the Bills. And now, after the Giants loss, it feels like, maybe they're just the same old Chargers. Like, where do you stand on the Chargers after 4 games?
I think the Chargers are a very good team. They are still one of the better teams in the AFC. But losing Joe Alt at this point in the season to a high ankle sprain practically dooms their ability to be efficient on offense. Justin Herbert has been pressured 73 times this season already. He's been pressured on almost half of his dropbacks this season. It is not, even with Joe Alt in the game, you've done so much moving and shaking to the offensive line where Mekhi Becton has missed time. You've had Trey Pipkins in there. You've had Jamari Sawyer playing different spots along the offensive line. And that is just my biggest thing, especially as the Giants game was the first game they were really able to run the ball, and they only ran it like 15 times. So I worry about their offensive line because that is the crux outside of Justin Herbert. That is why the Chargers are able to do what they do. They're able to get into big personnel and mash teams on the ground because they have an offensive line that can do that. Without Joe Alt, who has played at an all-pro caliber at left tackle through the first part of the season, that moves Austin Deculus into the left tackle spot, and you keep everybody. And now this is a very, very subpar offensive line. You just wonder how sustainable that is, and try and hope that Justin Herbert doesn't get hurt behind this offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Herbert, not like everyone's worse against pressure. Like I feel like when I bring up pressure stats, I hear that. I understand that, but this is a bigger gap than normal. Justin Herbert, 114.4 passer rating, 8.3 yards per attempt when he is not pressured, 5.9% CPOE. With pressure, 52.5% passer rating, 52.5 passer rating, I should say, 5.2 yards per attempt, a minus 5.3% CPOE. Dramatic gap. And he's been a significantly better quarterback this year with play action. And it's much harder. It's easier to run play action if you can run the football. It is much harder to run play action if you don't trust your tackles to hold up while your quarterback's back is turned to the defense. And I think that's sort of the tough part is now without Joe Alt, like, clearly what this team wanted to do early in the year was drop back and throw at one of the highest rates in football. Like by, some of the adjusted stats where you look at, like they were the most pass-happy offense in football on early downs and neutral game scripts, which is fine. Like you, Justin Herbert, you clearly trust your wide receivers. Nothing wrong with that. Worked really well. If you can't protect, you can't do that. And so it feels like the fact that they got, really impressive work from Omari and Hampton against the Giants, who, by the way, are the worst run defense in football, that has to stick. Like, to me, I feel like for the short term, they have to shift back into being a more run-heavy offense, even if they're less explosive, just to try and take some of the pressure off of Justin Herbert.
And I think where you do that is, you mentioned not being able to do under center play action because you don't trust the tackles. You can try and be sustainable out of the shotgun running the football. I think they have the personnel to do that. Omari and Hampton's big 54-yard touchdown run was on a counterplay out of shotgun. But the issue is, in shotgun, it is so much harder to run play action. But it also is going to protect your tackles because you don't have to drop back as deep. You don't have to try and sell that fake. So I wonder how they're going to create some sustainability in the play action game. Do you do more boot action? Do you just try and get the pocket moving a little bit? Because you still can try and run the ball. I think they're going to have to. Omari and Hampton played really well against the Giants. You saw a lot of that tackle breaking ability. I said he is a no-nonsense runner. He's going to follow that gap, and he's going to try and run over somebody who meets him in the gap. So with that physicality, that ability to just get 4 yards, if you can just get 5 yards, that'll make it a lot easier to throw the ball in the quick game scenario. You're not getting quick pressures on play action. So if you can just hold up on the quick pressures, you can run game and quick game your way to wins, especially with the way the defense has been playing.
Yeah. One more question on the offensive side of the ball for the Chargers. I talked about whether you believe in the Jags earlier. Another question about do you believe in this person? Quentin Johnston, off to like a really hot start at making plays downfield. Sounds like a drop here or there, but not any of like the catastrophic drops we saw from the past couple of years. Vlad McConkey has sort of been marginalized weirdly by the Keenan Allen addition. It feels like he is still kind of finding his space, his role in this offense. But do you buy this like Quentin Johnston as like the downfield attacker, the guy who's going to be hitting stuff up the sidelines, running deep posts? Like, can he be a really explosive player in this offense for an extended period of time?
I'm buying it. And I think the reason I'm buying it is because he's created separation. That it's the threat of speed for Quentin Johnston that opens up everything else for this team. That is what they were really missing. They were missing a reliable speed threat last year. Now that Quentin Johnston has actually hauled in a lot of those vertical passes, a lot of those deep crossers, I think Greg Roman has really figured out what Quentin Johnston is at his best at. And it's a lot of like he runs along the XY axis. You're running him very far down the field on a straight line, or you're running him across the field on a straight line. You don't want him turning, and you don't want him trying to get a lot of the separation stuff, which is why you have Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey. So if he is a lot better in this role, I'm buying it because it's a smaller role than he's been asked to do. And I think that's the reason for a lot of guys being a lot better, which is you don't have to do as much. Everybody kind of moves down a slot. When you have Keenan Allen, who can kind of be more of the reliable separator on third down, Quentin Johnston's role as just the vertical like field stretcher becomes even more prominent because he can maximize himself in that area. It's like having a really good three-point shooter on the team. You don't have to ask him to do too much. You can just run him off screens, and that way he'll get open on a lot of shots. So that's what I think the Chargers offense is doing. So I'll buy into Quentin Johnston. It's crazy to say, but I'm buying into Quentin Johnston.
Yeah, and the defense I buy. I mean, this is the deepest secondary to me in football. They just get so much out of their players. Like Benjamin St-Juste, who got benched by the Commanders last year, looks like he's playing well. You have Cam Hart coming out off the bench and making a difference. Tony Jefferson, who was out of the league for a while, when Elijah Molden's been out, he's been coming in and making plays. And I mean, it just feels like they can trust those guys so much, and because they have those pieces in the secondary and they can, defend with a light box up front. Diane Henley's been really good. It feels like even without Khalil Mack, they've been fine. I would love to get Khalil Mack back after, he's missed time this year with a wrist injury. But, I guess the thing I would say is like, with the Chargers defense, they don't blitz a lot, have one of the highest sack rates, above average pressure rate in football. Seahawks defense, same thing with Mike McDonald and Jesse Minters, both come from Michigan, both come from the Harbaugh camp. Don't blitz a ton, high sack rate, pretty good pressure rate, really impressive, attack opposing protections really well. Is that like the new meta for you in defense around the NFL? Like if you're thinking like, okay, like what defense do I want my team to emulate, or where do I want to hire a guy from this tree or that tree? Is that the defense you're going for at this point?
I think I would, and it's the selective pressures. It's knowing when to pick and choose. I think that's what I like the most about Jesse Minter and Mike McDonald's defenses is they can find your weakest link and they'll attack them with stunts. You think about Derwin James coming in and knocking the Raiders right tackle backwards on a sack to free up Khalil Mack. They have such a good ability and I think both teams have the personnel to stay and defend the run using light boxes. And then you have that ability you don't have to blitz. You can have guys sort of compress the pocket. And where the Chargers really separate themselves is Deion Henley is such a good spy and such a good like green dot linebacker where you can have him on delayed blitzes. You can have him spy the quarterback. So with Bud Dupree, Khalil Mack, Caleb Murphy, Tuli Tuipulotu, outside of Murphy, those guys are all pocket pushers. They're going to try and compress the pocket. And the biggest issue with that is with mobile quarterbacks, they can step up and out. It's hard to step up and out with a former wide receiver playing linebacker as your spy. So the fact that they are able to get pressure without blitzing, I also think it speaks a lot to the communication in the secondary. They are so smart and so well taught in the secondary where they're running routes for receivers. They are passing off coverages. They're getting really good play, like you said, out of guys like Tareeb Still, who has been one of my favorite like tackling corners to watch in the NFL. The Chargers in itself, they all tackle really well, but that secondary has tackled amazing this season. Tareeb Still played well. You're getting Tony Jefferson reps that are actually really good.
Yeah.
Lori Gilman has played well instead of while Elijah Molden is trying to get back. So I have a lot of faith in this defense being sustainable. And if I were building a defense, I'd want to frame it in the image of a Jesse Minter and Mike McDonald.
Yeah, I mean, I think to just get the most out of their players. So many guys who have come there, even last year, guys like Morgan Fox and Tier Tart, who we signed there this year, at all three levels. It's not like, they just make one position better. They make guys better throughout the lineup. And so that's the really cool thing to me. Even Derwin James, he's been so much better since in this defense. And he's playing phenomenal football. That is such a fun defense to watch. Do you want to name any more teams? Is there another team, as we finish up here, I guess, who you feel confident deserves to be in this conversation?
Man, it's tough because the other two teams I'm going back and forth between right now are the Chiefs and the Ravens, who both who played each other on Sunday.
So, I'll just start out there before we finish up. I'm happy to talk about either of those teams, but we're not going to throw out the Colts, who are 3-1, or the Steelers, who are 3-1 in this conversation.
So I actually am more willing to put the Colts in this conversation because I think what they showed me against the Rams was that their defense can play well. They can play good enough to get by the bad Daniel Jones game. Daniel Jones fumbled, 2 interceptions. This was the bad Daniel Jones game. Daniel Jones also made some good plays. They had some nice reps from Tyler Warren. They are able to manufacture and create explosives. I'm not buying the Steelers. I'm not. I'm sorry. You're going to have to throw the ball downfield eventually. And this feels like the most please don't touch me offense by Aaron Rodgers. This is the most 2020, the end of Big Ben's career with the Steelers.
Yeah.
This feels like the exact same thing where they're just they're throwing 2-yard routes. It feels like they're just throwing now screens and slants. And I just don't think that's very sustainable. I also don't think the defense is very sustainable against a team with a pulse. So I'm more willing to put the Colts in that scenario, but I am worried about if Indy can win in drop back passing scenarios. They have used play action at the highest rate in the NFL. They have really, I say this kindly because it is a good thing that they are using play action and using motion to dress up their offense because that's what you want to do. They are hiding Daniel Jones as a passer outside the numbers, which is a good thing. Maximize what your quarterback can do, minimize what you can't. But in games where you have to throw the ball downfield to win, I still don't believe in them very much, and I want to see if their pass rush can really turn it up on the edges. Leatu Latu had a great game on Sunday. I want to see if their pass rush can really bring some more juice to the table.
Yeah, 3rd in QBR this year, but 21st in pressure rate. Up the last 2 weeks, they were 1st in QBR and last in pressure rate after 2 weeks. That was not going to be sustainable, but I think Latu's the guy who I brought up, such an important player for them because they need that edge rusher who can be transcendent. DeForest Buckner's still really good on the interior in terms of creating pressure, but they need, they're going to have a rotation. They're going to have guys who are going to win here and there, but if Latu can win consistently, that is such a big step forward for them. And I mean, Jonathan Taylor has been otherworldly. I think that's been a prerequisite for that offense because he has to be the dude. And the Steelers, I mean, you said it. They are just entirely dependent on takeaways right now on the defensive side of the ball. And they've played the 6th easiest schedule so far per Football Power Index. And they play the 4th toughest schedule from here on out from this point forward. So I'm a little skeptical.
We will find out if that offense is sustainable or not against teams that have a warm body at quarterback.
Yes. So then leaving it to, you said, Chiefs and Ravens, who do you feel better about right now?
I'm going to say the Chiefs because I think the Chiefs' issues are more easily solved this year than the Ravens, especially given what the Ravens are going through injury-wise. The biggest thing for the Ravens is that they are so thin defensively up front, especially with Nnamdi Madubuike out. Broderick Washington probably is going to be out for an extended period of time. Travis Jones got hurt during the Chiefs game. Van Noy didn't play in the Chiefs game. Roquan Smith got hurt. So you're just naming front 7 guys. And now, the Ravens are a deep team, and no team in the NFL can overcome that level of injury. And also, Lamar Jackson is going to be out for the next 2 weeks. If they get to the bye at 1-5, which is very possible because you play the Texans and the Rams, that's a really steep hill to climb. It's going to be really tough, especially with a defense that, like we said, is incredibly thin up front. So I'm going to say the Chiefs because they're going to get Rashee Rice back, and that's going to kind of help keep the offense a little more sustainable. Mm-hmm. But the Ravens, I just worry so much about their injuries.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't even mention Marlon Humphrey got hurt in that game. Nate Wiggins got hurt in that game. Or Darius Washington's been out for the whole year. Like, they're so injured. And again, this is like I can sit here before the year and tell you, hey, the Ravens were the least injured team in football last year. They're going to get hurt more. That doesn't mean they're going to be down to like John Jenkins being an every down defensive tackle at 47 years old against the Chiefs. Like, that's not what you want on your defense. And that I think is the tough part. It's just like, maybe those guys get healthy. I still think the offense is really good. Like, I'm not concerned about the offense at all with Lamar on the field, but Lamar's out for a couple weeks now. Who knows? Hamstring injuries can linger. Like, doesn't mean, we hope he's going to be healthy after this point, after the bye, but you never know. They could have more players get hurt. Like, what happens if Kyle Hamilton gets hurt? What happens if, some of the other players on the defense get hurt? Like, we've seen last year's Niners are a good example. Just like, guys might just keep getting injured and you might just be stuck with guys off the street on the defensive side of the football. That's just so tough to overcome. And they're making mistakes. Like, they have some issues on defense as well. I think that stretch beyond just the personnel being hurt. Some of which might just be the fact that guys who are playing are not experienced football players or not expecting to play as often as they are. But I think that defense is really concerning me. Chiefs, logical place to go. They do beat the Ravens comfortably last week. Really, the offense looks good for the first time all season. Do you feel like that was evidence to you that getting Worthy back and having a wide receiver you have more confidence in was enough to unlock this offense? Or was that more about the Ravens being down to, 65 overall Madden dudes in too many spots on the defensive side of the ball?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think Xavier Worthy not only gives them a threat downfield, but his ability after the catch on RPOs matters so much for a team that even against a very thin Ravens team couldn't run the ball. They still can't run the ball. And I think it frustrates me so much because they are good at running the ball under center and it fits their offensive line and they never do it. They are not an under center team and it frustrates me. But they run all the RPOs with Xavier Worthy. They run the RPOs with Rashee Rice. But now you have some pop behind the RPOs because somebody is actually like fast and can make people miss. So I think having that threat on the RPO is going to really help their offense out. And it just slots everybody into a little better roles. With Worthy on the field, Juju Smith-Schuster can be a little bit more of the in-between guy. One of my very niche football guy takes is that Juju Smith-Schuster is really important to that offense for what he does to the blocker and some of his toughness over the middle of the field. And then you get Tyquan Thornton, you get Hollywood Brown, downfield stuff. It just feels like everybody has their niche roles in this offense with Worthy back. And then when you get Rice back, everything sort of fits together.
Yeah, a really good point. And we talked about it in a couple spots where getting that one guy puts everyone into a better role, a better spot. They're not being stretched to be, Tyquan Thornton has been a nice find this year. You don't want him to be your wide receiver one. It's just not what he is. And he's fine as an occasional deep threat. And Hollywood Brown getting 16 targets in that Chargers game because Worthy got hurt. That's not what you want Hollywood Brown doing. And I'm as big of a Hollywood Brown fan as anybody. That's just not what he's supposed to be doing in any offense. I mean, you couldn't have said it better about the run game. It is so frustrating just to see, you are paying Trey Smith so much money. You have the best center in football in Creed Humphrey. And you just do not want to run the football. You do not want to run gap stuff with your offense. You have a massive left guard in case of Suamataia. You're paying Juwan Taylor so much money. Josh Simmons has looked good. Just do it. I'm yelling at the TV, don't run outside zone or inside zone out of shotgun every single run play. Just don't do it. I guess I want to ask you this about the Chiefs, and this is maybe a more thought exercise and a reality for what they're going to do. There was so much discussion about a potential trade when Tyreek Hill was healthy in Miami. I don't know if that was ever realistic. I don't think the Chiefs were going to trade for Tyreek Hill for a lot of reasons. And now he's hurt, so it's definitely not going to happen. Is there a guy, is there an archetype, a position, or a player, if you want to pick a player? Like, we saw the Chiefs trade for DeAndre Hopkins last year before the deadline. They've traded for Kadarius Toney. They've been willing to make moves for players. Is there something you would like them to add on offense to make Patrick Mahomes' life easier?
I mean, the one thing that I've always said the Chiefs need if they're going to live in this world of RPOs and quick game is somebody with some toughness after the catch, and they're going to get that in Rashee Rice. They have the speed in Xavier Worthy. So I would say if they're going to trade for somebody, I don't think it should be on offense because their trade target's probably going to come back in Rice. It'll be Rashee Rice. That is the guy who they're getting. I actually would like to see them add another pass rusher on defense. I think they had a good game against Baltimore, but I largely think that's because Baltimore has not been good against the blitz this year. And a large part of that is because their guards have just been terrible. But the non-Chris Jones pass rushers have not been good this year. And it especially looks bad because you paid George Karlaftis all that money in the offseason, and he has still not looked like a quality second pass rusher on the edge. I actually think they need some speed. They need some juice on the edge. I would love to see them go after somebody with some speed on the edge. The first thought that came to my head was if the Giants really want to just go all in on the Abdul Carter era, Kayvon Thibodeau could be a guy that's on the list. I would love to just see them add somebody with some juice in that room to really help turn up their pass rush, because this is the most cover zero, this is the most blitz happy Spags has been in a long time. I think it's been since he got to Kansas City. And I just don't know if you can live that way.
Yeah, I mean, they're not, and one thing if you're blitzing a ton and it's working, but they're 24th in pressure rate when they're blitzing. And that's just a tough world to live in because every time you blitz and you don't get home, the secondary is not, like, this is not, the Charger secondary. Like, teams are picking on Chamari Connor. Christian Fulton's only played 17 snaps this year because of injuries. Like, you can blitz a ton if it works, but like, I think the Aaron Glenn Lions Commanders game last year is a good example of, like, you don't got the dudes in the secondary and you're blitzing because you have no choice and you don't get home, it is trouble. And that's like how you end up allowing 50 points in a game. So I think that's a really good point. I was going to talk about maybe a running back or a second tight end or something, but I think pass rusher makes more sense. And they, whiffing, it looks like, on the injured Felix Anudike-Uzomah is kind of hurt. Like, that was sort of, I think they wanted him to be, a big piece of that edge rushing puzzle along with Karlaftis, and he's not there. Charles Omenihu has not really made an impact this year. I think it's just tough. Like, I think, that's been a spot where when they've had their best versions of this defense, they've had that second pass rusher who can make a significant difference. And they obviously believe in Karlaftis, given that they paid him. And, he's had his moments, but I think he's more a guy getting there because teams are terrified of Chris Jones and a guy who is, like, moving the needle himself. And so, I mean, Thibodeau would be such a good fit if the Giants do want to move on and he's coming to the end of his rookie deal. I think that's, frankly, a much better idea than anything I could have come up with. So I'm going to steal that and say Kayvon Thibodeau makes total sense there. Let's finish up, JP. We talked about a bunch of teams in the AFC. Of the teams we did not mention, you don't have to go into detail, just, is there a long shot? Is there some team that could come from totally out of the blue and challenge to be the second best team in the AFC of the various teams we did not mention so far?
I wish there was, but all the other teams we didn't mention just have too many major flaws. Like, the first team that came to mind was the Texans because they have the defense that can really cause a lot of problems. But I still don't trust their offensive line. They scored 26 points against the Titans, but that game was 6-0 for a long time, and they just gave up the quickest sack in next-gen stats history on a run play. Like, that play was not a pass. Like, it was actually supposed to be, I think they were trying to wham block Jeffrey Simmons, and nobody blocked him. So I wish I could believe in that team because I want to believe in that defense, but I don't trust their offensive line at all. I still think they're still trying to figure themselves out. And then outside of that, I mean, you could maybe, if I'm feeling like, if you really want to talk me into a team, I could maybe see the Patriots because Drake May is playing really, really well.
Yeah.
But outside of the Patriots, I don't know.
The only reason I would say the Patriots is they play the Bills this week in Buffalo. They're not going to win. I mean, if they do, good for them. After the Bills, they're at the Saints, at Tennessee. They host Cleveland. They host Atlanta. They're at Tampa, which is tough. They host the Jets. They're at the Bengals, who probably won't have Still Burrow. And they host the Giants. Like, this team, that schedule is choice for the New England Patriots. They don't have to be great, but I think they're better than a lot of those teams.
All you gotta do is be better than the Giants. You just be better than the Saints. And honestly, like schematically, they're doing some pretty cool stuff with two backs on the field. Josh McDaniels is doing this really cool thing where he is blending everything that he did with the Brady Patriots, with the under center stuff, the gap scheme, a lot of the play action and a lot of the passing concepts are from those Brady era Patriots, but also doing the Cam Newton 2020 run game stuff. They're running counter bash, and like they have all this cool run game stuff with their two backs on the field. It's really fun. And Drake May's playing out of his mind right now. He's been incredible to start this season. That's even without a receiver seemingly stepping up. I mean, Kayshon Boutte is probably their wide receiver one. So if you can just get a little bit more oomph from that offense, I think if they can play with a lead, that really benefits their defense a little more because you'll have Christian Gonzalez healthy and they can get after teams when it comes to
Harold Landry's been really good so far.
Harold Landry's been awesome. Milton Williams looks like he's worth the money that they paid.
Yeah.
If they can get a lead, that'll benefit their pass rush a lot more because they're not built to stop the run. They are built to get upfield. And if they can get to a lead, if they can throw the ball effectively, that benefits both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think just holding on to the football, not fumbling on the 1 yard line, throwing interceptions inside the 5 yard line would be good. But they could, I mean, the Raiders game was kind of tough at the end, but they were playing better than the Raiders for a chunk of that game. They could easily be 3-1, if not 4-0 to start the year. So I would say the Patriots just because I think they're a little better than their record and because the schedule is just so incredibly easy for them moving forward. But yeah, I mean, it is a interesting conference right now. I think some of the teams we were high on heading into the year are still figuring things out or really dealing with injuries. Teams that looked like they were breaking through even earlier in the year. Fair to raise questions about them. That's why I felt like I wanted to talk to you about this because I feel like I'll feel pretty good about the Bills, although they've played an easy schedule after the Ravens game, but just feels like total chaos right now in the best possible way. JP, where can people check out your excellent coverage of the NFL?
So you can find me over at CBS Sports Pushing the Pile podcast. I co-host that podcast, Kyle Long, Mike Renner. Everywhere where you get your podcasts, you can find us there. You can find me on CBS Sports HQ. And then I also write weekly for CBS Sports. So just follow me there, see what I'm doing.
Awesome. JP, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.